Story 1. I did this once. She was very clear that nothing was going to happen and even drew an imaginary line for me not to cross. I agreed. Later, she was upset that I did not do anything. I thought, do you want me to risk going to jail on the off chance you have some unusual fantasy you hope to fulfill? Story 2. She can have the bed to herself. I am fine on the couch. It is simpler this way, nothing to calculate, nothing to make mutual friends wonder about, nothing to make future partners wary about. Also, I would be scared to get an erection in the morning with her beside me. Even if she understands, why subject her and myself to such a situation? Story 3. Sure. If she's my friend, I'm not trying to have sex in the first place. If I like her, I wouldn't just be her friend. I don't play those games. Story 4. Can I? Sure. Would I? No. I have sisters, and I know I would get pushed off that bed or into a corner far too quickly. Just give me the floor or a couch. Story 5. Since I am in a relationship, I think this way. Would I let my girlfriend share a bed with her male friend? The answer is no. Story 6. I wouldn't out of respect for my wife, but I would give them the bed and sleep elsewhere or on the floor below. It all boils down to respect for my significant other. I don't think she would like the idea of me doing that, and I wouldn't like it if she did that with a male friend. Story 7. I have done this multiple times, both clothed and partially unclothed. Men can actually be friends with women. Story 8. I have. We had been friends for a few years and she wanted a cuddle buddy. I was willing. I came over one evening. We had a great time like we always did, but this time I stayed over. We got into her bed and fell asleep cuddling. It was nice. We only did it twice because she started seeing someone. So obviously we stopped. Story 9. No, because I move around in my sleep and hug a pillow. So unless she wants to be bear hugged by an unconscious me, then respectfully, no. Story 10. No. Other than friends with benefits, never have, never will. If a female friend stayed the night, I grabbed the couch, chair, or floor. Offering the bed is polite, but sleeping in it with them is not. You open yourself up to too many issues. Story 11. It depends. Is she just trying to rest and sleep? Of course, I know how important sleep is, and I am honored she feels safe with me. Does she intend to do things directly with me? Also, yes, I am a bit promiscuous like that. Story 12. As long as there is room and everyone is comfortable with it, why wouldn't we? Platonic friends can share a bed perfectly fine. Obviously, do what your partner is okay with. Otherwise, it's just a bed. Sleeping in a bed does not equate to sex with someone. I have a king-size bed and have shared it with several women and men with whom I was not romantically involved. It's just a bed. Everyone has their own blanket and everything. The idea that sleeping in the same bed must mean you are totally into someone else and are going to have sex is weird and needs to stop. Men and women can be platonic friends. Acting like all men want to have sex with all women or vice versa is strange, and people should feel uncomfortable holding such beliefs. Story 13. I have many times and would again, yes. I would not if I were in a relationship, not because I do not trust myself or would do anything, but simply because I would not necessarily want to put my girlfriend through that. Otherwise, no problem. Story 14. I have done it a few times before out of necessity at parties or after a night out. There was no sexual tension or anything. We respected each other's boundaries. I always sleep on top of the sheets in that situation to avoid any unintended contact. I see no problem with it. My female friends are just that. Friends. I behave the same way with them as I would with my male friends. Totally platonic with no suggestion of anything else. Story 15. If I were single, sure. If I were not, no. I would not want to put my partner in that position. I know I would handle myself appropriately, but I understand how my anxiety affects me and would not want to put my partner through that. Story 16. I have. We were both intoxicated, and there were not many options in the cabin. Nothing happened between us. We talked about not crossing that line long before we reached that point. Story 17. Sure, I have done so before and would do so again. I have also slept right next to male friends many times. It makes no difference to me. Story 18. If she can tolerate my continuous positive airway pressure mask and mouth guard, she is welcome to come cuddle. If she disturbs my sleep, I will ask her to leave. Story 19. I have. It was fine. We were both single at the time, so no awkward optics to consider. We are still good friends. I call her when I have big news. Story 20. If I am single, I would treat it like any other situation. However, if I am with someone, it sends the wrong message unless my partner and I have clearly agreed that sharing a bed is acceptable. People cheat. We seem to have only one life before oblivion, so it is easy for most to justify cheating as trying not to miss out on life or simply enjoying a good moment. That said, trust is fragile, incredibly valuable, and worth protecting with boundaries. Overall, if single, it is nice to cuddle or have someone nice around. If in a relationship, it is not appropriate. Story 21. I have before and I probably will again, probably after a party or something like that. But if she is actually just a good friend and not a love interest, then it is fine. People have to sleep, you know. Story 22. Not currently. I cannot think of any reason that would necessitate such a thing. I am fine on the couch. If I were single, I would, even if not pursuing them because cuddles are nice. Story 23. If I am single, I will share the bed. I will snuggle too if the friend is open to it. Otherwise, I will try to sleep on my side only. Story 24. I have before. We were both in committed relationships and ended up in the same bed while our partners were away. There was zero sexual tension. It was like sharing a bed with a sibling. We literally just went to bed and fell asleep after a night of partying with friends at my apartment. I think this was one of those moments when I realized I was truly an adult. Story 25. I often shared a bed platonically with female friends. It was the most comfortable bed and was large. We did not bump into each other or touch. It was just sleeping. These were all long-established friendships, and I was not interested in them as more than friends. Sleeping within a couple of feet of them was not going to change that. Story 26. No. My wife would not like that, and I love my wife more than any other woman in my life. I will volunteer for the floor or couch. Story 27. I would just give them the bed. I have slept on floors before. It would be best for both parties and most respectful, I feel, although my wife would probably stay in the bed. Story 28. There are 3 scenarios. If one of you is not single, it is not respectful to your partner. If there is no attraction and you are both single, you are just friends spending time together. It is best to be under separate sheets or blankets as friends do. If there is mutual attraction and both are single, then yes, sharing a bed and a hookup is likely. Story 29. Yes, much like I would share a bed with one of my male friends. It is not strange to me as long as everyone has space and is comfortable. Story 30. I have done it many times. No problem. If they are my actual friend and not just someone I am trying to pursue romantically, then I am not thinking about them in that way. Story 31. I have shared a bed with female friends. There was nothing sexual between us, and neither of us wanted there to be. If there are not enough beds and you both trust that nobody will do something inappropriate, then I do not see a reason why not. Story 32. No, even if we were siblings close, I don't feel comfortable with it and would rather let them have the whole bed and sleep on the floor. Story 33. If you cannot sleep in the same bed as your female friend without trying to make a move, then she is not really your friend. She may be pleasant to be around, but you are really just hoping to take your chance. I am not saying it is right or wrong. I am just saying be honest with yourself. Story 34. I did once and she asked me not to try anything, so I did not. Turns out she secretly wanted me to try something, but honestly, she turned out to be a bullet dodged. So yay me. Story 35. When I got a divorce, I had a good female friend with whom I had no romantic intentions or chemistry whatsoever. We were never going to have a sexual relationship. We would hang out, watch movies, play games, and just be friends. One day, I asked if we could take a nap together, and she said yes after we established clear boundaries. It was a wonderful, safe, and encouraging experience. We never crossed the line or made it anything more than it was originally meant to be. Eventually, once I started dating again, we stopped but have remained friends. She is married now to a great man who is also a good friend. Story 36. I am gay. I feel awkward sharing a bed with men and women. I feel equally awkward in both cases. I do not think it is awkward to share a bed with a close friend, but not with an acquaintance. However, I would not share a bed with a close male friend. Story 37. I did once. I had a massive crush on her and felt awkward about it, but I kept to myself because I knew she trusted me as a friend and I did not want to abuse that by making a move. It turned out she wanted to be intimate and was disappointed that I did not do anything. I found out years later, and by then it was too late. Story 38. When I was single, I slept with a female friend in my truck while camping twice. I do not think I would now that I am in a relationship, but if it is the only option, it is the only option. I would just rather take the floor. I am also annoying to sleep with because I move around a lot and do not want to be a bother. Story 39. Yes, if both are single and clear on boundaries, most men would share a bed with a female friend. It is practical and harmless as long as there is mutual respect and no mixed signals. Story 40. I shared a bed with a friend for 2 nights. It is completely normal. If you treat your male friends as friends, you can treat your female friends the same way. If you cannot, then you or others automatically assume there is more than friendship or do not see each other as just friends. I treat all my female friends the same way I treat my male friends. Story 41. My wife would not be happy if I did it now, but when I was single, I definitely shared beds with women. In each case, we were friends and nothing happened. These were not secret crushes or anything. I am a paramedic, and despite not being in the same bed, I have definitely shared small bunk rooms with women. Story 42. When I was single, I had a female friend in whom I had no romantic interest. For me, it was purely platonic. At some point, we didn't hang out for a few months. Later, she told me she had undergone breast enlargement surgery and was waiting to heal completely. She was anxious about having very small breasts. She wanted to come over to my place so I could see and feel them. I asked her, "What do you mean, see and feel?" She said she wanted me to experience them. I thought about it and told her, "Sorry, I'm not going to do that." I explained it was because I am a passionate man and I didn't want to ruin our friendship. After some time, I realized she wanted more from our friendship, so I stopped hanging out with her. Sharing a bed, even though I had no romantic interest, was something I would avoid because she might have wanted more. Story 43. I went to a music festival with a friend, and we realized our room had only one bed. She sent me the link for the hotel, and I just paid for it without giving it much thought. I offered to take the floor, but since it was a king bed, she offered to share. No inappropriate behavior occurred from either side, thankfully. Story 44. Yes, but that depends on who that female friend is as well. It will have to be someone close. Several years ago, I traveled with a former college classmate. We were talking one day when we realized we both had one particular city on our bucket list. So we spontaneously planned a trip together. At the time we booked, we were both single. But by the time of the trip, she had a boyfriend already. Strangely, he did not mind her flying off with me and even sent us off at the airport. We booked 3 different hotels for our 2-week stay. For the first 2 locations, we had single beds. But for the 3rd hotel, our booking got mixed up and they gave us a king bed. There were no single bed rooms left to switch. We looked at each other and thought, never mind, just go with it. It was the first time in my life in bed with a woman who was not a romantic partner. I have to admit it was a bit awkward. It was winter, so we had to share the duvet. I could not sleep well as I was so conscious not to accidentally brush my legs or arms against her body. I did not want her to think I was being inappropriate. We were close friends, but this was a different kind of intimacy. You can literally feel the other person's body heat and get whiffs of their natural body odors. And when it is not your girlfriend or spouse, that feels strange. Story 45. Same answer as the question in the other sub. It depends on the size of the bed. I feel like the king bed is big enough for some personal space. If the bed was smaller, I would rather sleep on the floor. Story 46. Not every woman in my life is a target for sexual relations. I have women friends that I genuinely see as friends. I would not have sexual relations with them any more than I would with a man, which is 0%. So yes, story 47. I have done it many times. It was never weird or inappropriate. The only inappropriate thing is how they fart like pachyderms, snore loudly, and how warm some of them get. It was like sleeping with a noisy, stinky furnace. Story 48. Hell, I have plenty of times. I feel sorry for guys who do not have a close female friend. You get all kinds of good advice. Story 49. I would give her the bed and sleep on my couch. I would not share my bed with her because even if we decided that cuddling was okay, it would always lead to more. If all I wanted was a friendship with no attraction, then that is where the relationship would stand. I have been with women before who were okay with friendship, and some really tried to escalate it beyond that. It hardly ever worked out. Story 50. I did. My former roommate had a ticket to Hawaii for $10, and her now ex-boyfriend did not want to go. I was not going to pass that up. I invited my girlfriend, and she did not want to or could not go either. I was planning to sleep on the couch of our rental out of respect since I was a tag-along on her vacation and needed my own space. But since the bed was a king size, she said we could share. It was literally not an issue. She is one of my closest friends, and we have a purely platonic relationship. That was a specific example, but I have actually shared beds with female friends on more than one occasion. Aside from one girl on whom I did have a crush, I still kept it respectful. It has never been an issue. Story 51. I have traveled with a few female friends and kept everything completely platonic and separate. We respected each other's space and privacy, and it was completely fine. Story 52. I have done it many times, only to wake up in the middle of the night decades later thinking, was I supposed to make a move? Story 53. I have done it before and it was completely innocent, but I would avoid it these days out of consideration for my girlfriend. Story 54. Single, definitely not in a sexual way. In a relationship, no way. That is too intimate of an act in my opinion. Story 55. I once had a male friend who refused to share a bed with me during a camping trip when we were short on tents. He slept in his car instead. At first, I was offended, but later he explained that he deeply respected his girlfriend and did not want to create any misunderstandings. Story 56. If you are in a relationship, absolutely not under any circumstances. If you are not in a relationship, it does not matter. Story 57. A girl invited me to sleep over once, but she only had one bed, so she asked me to share it with her. I laid down and fell asleep because that is what she invited me over to do. A few days later, I learned that she was actually interested in me and wanted more than a sleepover that night. Why did she not just say something while we were in bed? Story 58. It depends on the friend and the situation, honestly. For some friends, it is totally fine. For others, it would just be weird. Context matters a lot. Story 59. Short answer. Yes. Longer answer. Yes, if we are going to have sex, it is not because sharing a bed magically made it happen. Story 60. I have been in that scenario and respectfully declined. I need to maintain boundaries or I might develop feelings. I can maintain a platonic friendship as long as there is no cuddling, and I am not comfortable with sexual conversations. Story 61. Yes, because if she says, don't try anything, I am almost certainly going to say, okay, cool, good night, and just go to sleep. It is really not that hard of a concept. Story 62. I grew up sleeping on the floor. I would probably sleep on the floor because I do not want to make people uncomfortable. Story 63. If I were not in a relationship and it was genuinely just sleeping, then there would not really be a problem. I have done it maybe a dozen times. Story 64. No, we are friends for a reason. I would offer the couch or one of my kids' beds, and if she pushed it further, I would take the couch or kids' bed. However, we are not sharing a bed regardless. Story 65. I would not go out of my way to create a situation that would make us share a bed. However, I have shared a bed with a female friend and would do so again if it made sense at the time. Story 66. I would not have a problem with it, and I would not do anything inappropriate. If I judged that this friend is the same way, then there is no problem. My wife, however, would not see it that way, so out of respect for her, I would not do it, even though I know she can trust me. Story 67. I have and will until it becomes an issue with a partner. I am single now, but once my significant other meets the two females I might share a bed with, it is usually never a problem. I have two female friends who are, quite honestly, closer to me than any family. After about 16 years, there has never been anything romantic or sexual between us, and it is very much a brother and sister relationship. It does not happen as often now that I have a two-bedroom apartment, but when I lived in a studio, if they needed a place to stay, they would come over, we would watch a movie, order takeout, and relax. Story 68. This is something my now wife and I did for a few years as friends. It was completely platonic and innocent. We did fall in love after a few years, though. The intimacy of feeling safe to fall asleep in bed next to a friend increases the intensity of feelings of closeness. Story 69. Depends. Is either one of us in a relationship at the time? Then that is a hard no. If both of us are single, then I guess it is okay. Not my favorite idea, but if the alternative is sleeping on the floor, then I will take it. Story 70. In the past, I have done this, and in theory, I am completely comfortable with it. As long as I have shared a bed with my wife, I do not know if it would be a good idea. Even if I go to sleep before my wife, when she finally gets into bed, I will figure out where she is and cuddle her. I would worry whether that would happen if I were sharing with just a friend. Story 71. Where are all the stories where everything goes horribly wrong? I lay stiff as a board while rocking a semi. Story 72. I'll assume that we are good friends and have a friendship we don't want to hurt. If we are both single and I have absolutely no attraction toward that female friend, yes. If I do have some attraction but no friends with benefits or going intimate in any way is out of the question, no. I don't want anyone I'm attracted to close to me in bed without intimacy. It doesn't work well for me. If either of us is not single, simply no. We have to respect our significant others. Story 73. Yes, I have done it. Nothing unusual, just sleeping, naps, and overnight rest. I will do it again if I am single because it is still something a partner would at least dislike. Also, only if I know nothing is happening or if the woman is not interested in me, because if not, then it is not just sharing the bed. It is enabling some kind of intimacy. Story 74. Yes, I have before. It reminds me of sleepovers when I was younger. I used to do that in college too. Take a nap and cuddle with my friend between classes. Story 75. When I was single, I used to do it without any issues. It was never a big deal. Now that I am with someone, it feels a bit disrespectful, so I do not do it anymore. Story 76. I have spent time with my female friend a couple of times. We have even snuggled together. She is my best friend, and we both know we cannot mess that up. She has been there for me since we met, which was right after I almost ended my life in 2018. We have a special connection that is strictly platonic. Is that rare? Yes, I do believe so. It is definitely a case-by-case basis, though. I would not sleep in the same bed with any of my other female friends. Story 77. I shared my bed with women friends multiple times with no problem. My house was closer after some late hangouts, or the friend needed emotional support and I offered that they stay in my house instead of sending them home knowing they were vulnerable. I lived with roommates and did not have a sofa in my room or an extra mattress, and planned to sleep on improvised bedding of quilts on the floor, but they trusted me enough to know I would never take advantage and did not want me to sleep on the floor. I am straight, but that does not mean I am incapable of being close to a woman in a non-sexual way. My sex drive is not more important than the value of my friends. I was single those times and would never expect a girlfriend to blindly trust me to do that while in a relationship. That is about not being inconsiderate with a partner's trust. Story 78. I went to a wedding in the south of Spain. I was with my then girlfriend, now my wife, her friends, and one of their husbands. One of my wife's friends, who has particular standards about cleanliness and comfort when sleeping, would not sleep on the pull-out sofa, which could easily accommodate 3 people. There were 6 of us. One of the couples always slept together, so that left me, my wife, and the two other girls. The girl with the particular standards slept in a double bed with me, while my wife slept with the other female friend because she gets nervous sleeping in new places. My wife had absolutely no doubt that anything would happen, nor did I, as all my wife's friends feel like sisters. Story 79. I did that a long time ago. That caused a lot of gossip about me because I did not take advantage of her. Apparently, I was expected to. Story 80. Yeah, I have and do often, especially if we are traveling together. One morning, a friend reached behind and gave my package a squeeze. She told me that was when she knew I was gay, because no straight man could ever be in my position and not be hard. Story 81. I would and have in the past. Nothing happened. I was out drinking with a group of friends. We all staggered back to one of their houses to crash. There were not enough beds for all of us. About 10 of us in a two-bedroom unit, so I slept on the couch with the goth girl. We were mates, and it was snuggly but completely platonic. Story 82. I have done this a few times without issue. However, I realize there are times when it would not be appropriate. Story 83. No. My ex-wife told me I would do things to her in my sleep, and I always felt bad about it. So, I wouldn't give myself the opportunity for that to happen because I have no conscious control over it, and it could ruin a friendship. I guess it has something to do with the female scent. Story 84. I have spent time with different friends. We did not touch each other, except for our backs bumping into each other or feet accidentally kicking each other. Things do not have to become sexual just because you are in a bed. Story 85. No, I sleep too naked. I am not sleeping on the couch. Last time I did that, I woke up at 2 a.m., looked in the mirror across from the couch, and freaked because I saw a naked couch potato. It was me. I was the naked couch potato. She can have the blow-up bed and sleep on the floor next to the bed. Story 86. I have no problem sharing my bed with a female or male friend. Of course, under ideal conditions, separate beds are always better. Story 87. Sure. I don't have a problem with being completely platonic. This is, of course, hypothetical because I am married. Before we were romantic, we did sleep together. I thought it was going to be platonic, but she had other plans. Story 88. There is nothing wrong with it if both parties are comfortable. It is not my place to police other people's behavior. That being said, I would not be comfortable with that. I am in a relationship, and while I know what I am doing and what my intentions are, it is disrespectful to my girlfriend. It is better to go home at a decent hour and sleep in my own bed. Story 89. I have done this in college with 4 people sharing a bed to save on hotel costs for a conference. A few years later, some friends who were intoxicated stayed the night in my one-bedroom apartment. I would not do this with someone who is not single because of appearances, but I have no concerns on my end since I do not act on impulse. Out of respect, I would give up my bed and sleep on the floor before it reached that point. Story 90. When I was single, I had platonic female friends with whom I traveled. One was a dive buddy, and we shared hotel rooms during scuba trips, which a couple of times only had one bed. The other was for weekend getaways hosted by social clubs in other cities, where occasionally we ended up sharing a room with only one bed. There was no inappropriate behavior with either. Story 91. I have shared a bed with my female friends 2,000 times. The same with my male friends. I have carpooled a bed with 3 other people of mixed sex before. Story 92. I have shared a bed with female friends many times. Now that we are in our 30s, if we go on a trip, we pay a little more so everyone has a bed or even their own room. If we need to stay over, we all have spare beds, so there is probably no reason to do so again. Story 93. 2 things come into play here. If you have been friend-zoned for a long time, nothing will happen. If one of you is in a relationship, it will cause havoc. Story 94. Yes. In fact, just a couple of months ago, she and I have been very close platonic friends for close to 13 years. However, I should note that we are both currently single. I would suspect most partners would not be comfortable with it, but it is what it is. Story 95. I don't care. If I share a bed, it is because I am very drunk. I shared a bed with a female friend. We were both trying to sleep, but she kept insisting that I rubbed her back. We were both on ecstasy, and she literally threw punches at me if I stopped. 6 months later, I shared a bed with her cousin, who is female and also on ecstasy. I had sex with her, then went back home to play guitar and study at 5 in the morning. 18 months later, I shared a bed with my friend's uncle during her birthday because we were both very drunk. He stole my bed, and I was too drunk and falling asleep after using cocaine. Party drugs are strange. Story 96. I have actually thought a lot about this. I would not because my partner would not like it. Also, I generally do not like sharing beds with women. If I had to for some reason, I would probably find my own blanket and put a pillow down. Not to stop any intimate activity, but because women tend to migrate into a diagonal position, so you end up either being kicked in your legs until you are on the edge or having someone's face directly in your ear snoring. Men tend to stay in the same position. Story 97. Yes, I have, and I did when I was single. Even though it was totally innocent, I would not do it right now because I am in a relationship. I slept next to Angie in high school. We napped like cats. Mariana was a friend I slept next to on a few drunk nights. She used to get good cocaine before fentanyl ruined everything. Even when drunk and tired from partying, we did not do anything. Story 98. Yes, and if she takes the whole blanket, I will take her to Suplex City. Be asterisk 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 asterisk. Story 99. If she is in a relationship, no. I would find it disrespectful towards her boyfriend, and I would not feel comfortable if my girlfriend did it. If we are both single, I would do it only if there is no other alternative, such as no couch to sleep on. Story 100. If I am too close and comfortable with my friend or partner, it is not a big deal. It feels like family only. Story 101. At university, I knew a girl with whom I shared a bed twice, with no inappropriate behavior. Both times were after a night out. I felt she was actually kinder and warmer to me as a result. Story 102. I've shared a tent, a bunk, and a sleeping bag because theirs was wet after going to a swamp. We also have saunas quite commonly at mixed events. I feel like I'm built differently to give a definitive answer, but yes, I don't see a reason not to. For context, being a conscript in a mixed unit, you do whatever it takes to get the job done, especially since temperatures dip to -25 degrees. Story 103. The only problem is there is likely to be a shark between us at some point, and it will need to be strangled to death. Story 104. When I was single, yes, as long as I felt they had good hygiene. Multiple times with multiple friends, things never got weird, but I was always respectful. For some friends, it was more common because, well, I think it was just that boozy time in our lives or because I moved around the world so much. Story 105. With someone I am not attracted to, sure. I have done it with someone I was attracted to who was not attracted to me. In the short term, it was enjoyable, but long term, it was not. This happened recently with a friend of mine with whom I had a big falling out. We are on okay terms now, but we went from being very close friends to simply people in the same friend group who were friendly. Sleeping together, literally sleeping, not sex, was not good for me, as I had feelings for her that she did not reciprocate. Story 106. Why is it so hard to share a bed with someone without it becoming sexual? If you can share a bed with your sister without being inappropriate, you can probably do the same with a girlfriend. Story 107. I am married, so no, absolutely not. However, I cannot imagine doing this while single since I would have gladly been intimate with all of my female friends, and I would have completely misunderstood the situation if any of them had asked to sleep in the same bed as me. Story 108. I have done it before, especially when trying to save money on a hotel. It usually ends with some cuddling but nothing more. Story 109. I have shared a few naps with my female best friend while staying at her place. We are really close friends and do not want a sexual relationship with each other. I do not know if I would share a bed with just any woman I am friends with. It is comfortable with my friend because we trust each other and know what we want from our friendship. I still think about the times we were close together, and they are some of my best memories with her. She has told me that she has similar good memories. I think it is nice being so close with someone that you are comfortable sharing intimate moments like that. I have other female friends with whom I would not share a bed because I do not think they would be comfortable with it. I am not comfortable with it either because we do not have the same kind of close friendship. My best friend is like a sister to me. Story 110. If you want to have sex with that friend, sharing a bed seems like a good idea. If you do not want to have sex with that friend, I suggest not sleeping in a bed with them. I personally would only have sex with a woman I want to have a relationship with, but some men do not think that way. Story 111. Yes, I have a few times. Nothing happened. I did not want anything to happen. Sometimes you just need a place to rest, and they do not have a couch. Story 112. I shared a bed with a female friend for 3 months when I first moved to Toronto. It did not end well. We were platonic friends until I moved into that place. It was her idea for me to move in. She never said anything about liking me or not. I started seeing someone. My roommate became angry and asked me to leave. Story 113. I have shared a bed with friends. I have shared a sleeping bag with a friend. When you need sleep, you need sleep. Things are only weird if you make them weird. Story 114. Not married, yes. It would not be my first choice, though. If I were married, no. It might upset my partner, even if they were originally okay with it. Plus gossip. If it were a survival situation, I would snuggle a fuzzy Hagrid. Story 115. Sure. If it is completely platonic, it really should not be a problem. The true problem is what do you do with her if she snores? Story 116. Since I am married now, no, because I do not want to disrespect my wife in marriage. Back in my single days, I had several people sleep in my bed. Story 117. If we are both single, sure, why not? But I have been married for 22 years. So I am taking the couch and letting my wife and friend have the bed. Story 118. I have multiple times. It is much less now that I have a girlfriend, and the only other girl I am allowed to share a bed with is her best friend. However, we have no sexual curiosity, and we have known each other longer than my girlfriend has known her. Story 119. It's a blurry line, to be honest. I would and have done it when single with my best friend of 13 years. If either of us is in a relationship, I would rather sleep on the cold hard ground in the kitchen than share a bed. Story 120. Personally, every time I did it when we woke up, we were no longer friends. I'm not bragging. I would love to have this kind of relationship with someone from the opposite gender. The few times it happened, I was sure we would remain just friends, but things got in the way either by my own actions or by the female friend. It always starts the same way. Cuddling, caresses, light kissing. You understand what I mean. If you were single, why not? But the chances are that either your friend wants something more. If you have a partner, just don't. Nothing good will come of it. Story 121. I am not opposed to it, but I would not choose to. I only share a bed out of necessity or sexual intention. Story 122. I have shared a bed with my cousin before in a hotel room for 2 nights. It was not weird at all. We only slept. Story 123. No. Possibly, but there is a very low chance if it is a king-size bed with separate blankets. I would prefer to lay a blanket on the floor and sleep on it rather than share the same bed. Story 124. I have a self-inflating mattress. I would give the bed to my friend while sleeping on the inflatable mattress. Why? Because I am in a relationship, and she means everything to me. I do not want to do anything that can bring mistrust, even if she is not there or will never know. I firmly believe that you truly are who you choose to be when no one sees you. So, no, I would not sleep in the same bed with a female friend. Also, if you do not plan to have sex with her, it does not mean she does not want to have sex with you. Sometimes people do irrational things. Story 125. What is the context here? Is there only one bed as an option? Or are you just doing it for fun? If she is your female friend and is asking to sleep in the same bed with you, that implies she wants to be more than friends. If there is only one bed as an option and you do not want any romantic involvement, the rule is to play rock, paper, scissors to decide who gets to sleep under the covers and who sleeps on top with a separate blanket. Then try to build a barrier between you with pillows or something similar. Story 126. I have been with multiple female friends with no issues. If we are both single, comfortable with it, and on the same page that either something or nothing will happen, then there will not be any issues. Story 127. As long as we have our own blankets, I would not have an issue with it, if it were not for my unfortunate tendency to initiate sex with my wife in my sleep sometimes. While I do think it can be perfectly acceptable, I would not do it if there was any other option available. Story 128. Are we both single? Then yes, sure. If not, then probably not out of respect for the other party. However, I personally would be okay with it. I like to think I am capable of acting like a normal person. Story 129. I shared a bed with my female friends once. If they are single, okay with it, and we do not have any more space to sleep, then I do not mind. I shared a bed with my sister for 8 to 9 years, so I do not mind. However, I can see why this could be an issue for their partners. Story 130. Currently in a relationship, but if I were single, I would and have once. She is my ex. We were together for about a decade, but things ended and we are basically siblings now. We do not see each other sexually or romantically in the least, and honestly, fight like siblings from time to time. We have never backslid in any way. We have known each other for over 20 years. A few years after we broke up, I went with her out of state to an event, and we just got a single queen bed hotel room to save money. We both slept in underwear. Nothing was weird, not even a twitch in my lowers. I understand some might argue this is less weird or awkward because she and I did have history, but I think that would hold the most potential for awkwardness and temptation. Of course, that all depends on the individuals involved. That said, I believe I would feel just as comfortable platonically sharing a bed with any female, even if I were physically attracted to her. It is called self-control. If it is not that kind of situation and you do not have consent, turn that off. It is not hard. There are many reasons a mixed gender sharing might occur, and it should not be weird or necessarily sexual. I also feel the same for same-sex platonic sharing. For full disclosure, I am bisexual. But again, if that is not what it is, then that is simply not what it is. Story 131. If I had a girlfriend, I would not. Honestly, I probably would not do it either way because I move around in my sleep. My ex told me that I groped her one night, but I had no clue that happened. Story 132. If I were single, sure. Not if I were in a relationship without discussing it with my partner. I know I can trust myself, but I would totally understand if they were uncomfortable with it. Story 133. Generally, yes, if we could not have our own beds for some reason and we were comfortable with one another. If you are both single, there is no one else to be concerned about. If one or both are in a relationship, my opinion is you either trust your partner or you do not. It is difficult to implement in practice, I know. I do not know what I would do if the situation called for it and my partner was against it. Story 134. If we are both single, then yes, no problem. Otherwise, I will sleep on a hard floor and use a television as a blanket before doing that. I have done it plenty of times with some of my really close friends. Sometimes it has been almost intimate cuddling. Other times, just like sleeping in the same bed as a friend. Story 135. Sure. Why not? If you were just intending to sleep, I see nothing wrong with it. However, if you were to ask my wife, she would not be too thrilled about it. I work in an environment where we usually have to bunk co-ed, so this happens sometimes if there are not enough bunks. You sleep opposite each other and have no problems. Story 136. Yes, I let a friend sleep over whenever. We go out drinking. No inappropriate behavior. I respect the space. I haven't done it when I had a girlfriend because I don't know if they would be okay with it, and I would feel it is disrespectful. I wouldn't do it. I would rather sleep on the couch or floor. Story 137. I have shared a bed with women before and did not have sex. With the first one, I placed a pillow between us because I tend to be a starfish. With the second one, we were both drunk, woke up naked, and laughed. There was nothing sexual about either experience. If I were married or in a relationship, I would not do it. I would feel that it would be disrespectful to my partner. Story 138. I have before and I would do it again. My female best friend is now my wife. Before I met her, I was really just protective of my female friends. I have a twin sister, so I don't really have that creepy side that most of my male friends have. I remember my friend called me while I was out hanging with my guys, and she told me she had nowhere to stay the night because her friend wasn't answering the phone. She was visiting from college, so I picked her up and took her to my parents' place where I lived. My room was a mess, and my bed was tiny. I set her up on the bed and made a spot on the floor for myself. She was incredibly offended and told me to come on the bed. I resisted but eventually came onto the bed and slept with my back to her the whole night. My friend is stunningly beautiful, and I have always been able to appreciate that, but I have never been attracted to her. She is the homie. Honestly, I don't really need a bed that badly. Just a pillow or something to elevate my head. If there is a bed, she can have it. I love you. I will see you in the morning. Story 139. If I were single, yes. She would receive a warning that my genitalia might react on its own, and whatever she does with that information is entirely up to her. Now that I am in a relationship, no. There is literally no reason for me to be in bed with a woman who is not a family member or my girlfriend. Story 140. I have done this with friends of all genders, sexes, and orientations, especially at university before I started to snore like a combine harvester with bronchial pneumonia. Neither of us went to bed with any intention other than to sleep. Sometimes there was spooning, but platonically, it is nice to be cuddled up to a friend. I approached it like this. If we were both female friends hanging out sleepover style, it would not be looked at twice. I was just having a sleepover with my friend. My best friend for years was a man who shared a bed with me on dozens of occasions. We are both bisexual for context. My girlfriend at the time thought it was strange at first but quickly realized that my friends and I are mostly just comfortable with that kind of platonic intimacy. I have shaved my friends' legs and faces for them or helped them bathe or dress when they were ill or injured. Sometimes we are just hanging out and chatting while one of us is in the bath. Once you get past the social hang-ups and restrictive sexual stratification, we are all just insecure people who feel safer when we sleep together in the same space. You are not going to participate in something inappropriate unless you choose to, whatever inappropriate means to you and your friends or partners. Story 141. Outside of a life or death situation. No. I respect my wife too much to share a bed with another woman. Even if nothing happens, accusations and rumors can be incredibly dangerous. There is always an alternative. A couch, the floor, or taking a cab. There is simply no reason to share a bed with your friends. I should also note that I am not going to share a bed with any male friends either. Story 142. In my teens and 20s when I wasn't married, yes. I did it hundreds of times, but that was also the time I did a large amount of drugs, going to raves and festivals every other weekend. We crashed wherever we could, and my house was a party house with about 8 people living there on average. Now close to 50 and married? No. More because I don't have any friends, as I moved 3 states away. Story 143. If I am not in a relationship, I see no issue with my female friends sharing a bed or even platonic cuddling. I have done it before with no issues, but definitely not if I am currently dating someone. Story 144. If both of us are single, then there is no problem. If either of us or both of us are in a relationship, it will not happen. Story 145. Yes. Sleeping is sleeping. A friend is a friend. A bed is a bed. There is nothing wrong with any of that. Story 146. If I am in a relationship? No, not in a relationship. Sure. Why? Because I am tired and want to sleep in a bed. Story 147. Yes, I have done it before. There was no implied funny business, so it was not a big deal. I would not if I were in a serious relationship, though. Story 148. If neither person is in a relationship, yes, for convenience. We can both control ourselves without issues. If one or both have a partner, probably not, just to avoid problems. If really needed, I would sleep on top of the covers and make sure there is prior communication with both of us and her partner. Friends are friends. There would be nothing sexual there. Unless it is a new friend, both single and more of a friends with benefits vibe, then maybe. Story 149. If they are not in a monogamous relationship, I would take action because things might happen. If they are in a monogamous relationship, they can sleep on the couch. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.